Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. If I sound a little different in this video, maybe slur a couple of words, I'm not drunk, I'm not drugged up. I actually had my first sparring session in quite some months and wouldn't say I got bashed up, but I sustained a bit of damage. I've got a cut inside my mouth, which makes it a little it makes it awkward. It feels awkward talking kind of thing. But it is what it is. This video is a quick preview and prediction for Caleb Plant versus David Benavidez. This fight goes down on the 25th of March, takes place at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Showtime pay-per-view. I'm not sure what TV channel this is on in the UK, to be honest. If you guys know, please let me know in the comments. But this is a fight in which I've been looking forward to for quite some time. I've been wanting to see this fight for 2 to 3 years now, and I'm glad that it's finally happening. Now, it's very rare to where I get excited by a build-up for a fight. But the build-up to Caleb Plant and Benavidez has been entertaining, to say the least. I think the beef between these two fighters is genuine. The dislike appears real, whereas most times I look at these instances and I just see fakeness and contrived scenarios, to be honest. But the dislike, the beef in regards to this fight, it seems pretty genuine to me. And I like to see that now and again, you know, I do like to see that now and again. So that in itself is making this exciting. But, you know, even on the boxing side, I find the stylistic clash very interesting. And by the way, this fight is actually for the WBC interim 168-pound title. But yeah, let's briefly break down the tale of the tape. We shall start with David Benavidez. David Benavidez has a perfect record of 26-0, 23 of his 26 wins coming by way of knockouts. Caleb Plant has a record of 22 wins, 1 defeat, 13 of his 22 wins coming by way of knockout. The tale of the tape would suggest that Benavidez is the harder puncher, and I would agree, but I think when it comes to Benavidez's power, it is mainly accumulation, and bear in mind, a lot of these guys he's been stopping have been smaller men, like middleweights coming up, so maybe the power differential isn't as big as some people think it is, but I would certainly say Benavidez does have the power advantage in this fight. David Benavidez is listed as 6'2" with a 74.5-inch reach, whereas Caleb Plant is listed as 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. So officially, David Benavidez has a 1-inch height advantage and half an inch in reach as well. So he is the taller and longer man, but in regards to height and reach, it is minimal. Though Benavidez is much bigger, as we know. Overall, he's a much heavier set guy, carries a lot more weight on fight night, and going into this fight, I'm not really sure what Caleb Plant rehydrates to, but I would assume that Benavidez is, 10-12 pounds heavier on fight night, I'm guessing. So, yeah, the height and reach is comparable. But yeah, Benavidez is going to be much heavier on fight night, so Benavidez has the size advantage in this bout. Both Caleb Plant and David Benavidez are orthodox fighters. David Benavidez is 26 years old, whereas Caleb Plant is 30 years old. So both guys are in and around their primes. Maybe Benavidez hasn't quite reached his prime yet, though I would say Caleb is in his prime right now. So yeah, these guys are fighting at a really good time, in my opinion. Neither guy's on the slide or anything like that. Both guys are operating at a high physical level. So that's good to see. But anyway, now the tale of the tape is out of the way, let's break down what I believe each guy should do to stand the best chance of winning this fight. Now, and at the end of the video, I will make my official prediction. As for David Benavidez, as we know, Benavidez isn't the pure boxer in this fight. He's going to be the guy who is applying pressure and, trying to make it a rough night for Caleb Plant physically. He's the bigger, stronger man. Ultimately, this is not rocket science. He needs to make that count on fight nights. It would be silly for him to engage in a boxing match with Caleb Plant for 12 rounds. Ultimately, it's down to Benavidez to apply pressure and really test Caleb Plant's gas tank, test that resolve, test that heart, because there are question marks. I wouldn't say in regards to Plant's heart per se, but certainly in regards to his gas tank. I think Benavidez should start this fight aggressively. I want to see him start this fight behind that high guard and firing quick, hard jabs as he's moving forwards. I think one good combination that could work for David Benavidez actually is the 1-2 left hook. So jab, straight right hand, left hook. Caleb Plant very often fights in a Philly shell type of defense, and Caleb Plant is good at defending against single shots. He actually rolls single punches really well in that shoulder roll type defense. But with Caleb Plant, the problem with his shoulder roll is he's not very good at defending against the second and third phases of attack in that Philly shell defense. So yeah, Benavidez needs to come in with that jab. Plant may slip the jab or roll the jab, come through with a straight right hand. He may even evade the right hand as well. But one shot that Plant consistently gets caught with, and has done throughout his career, is the left hook. And if I'm Benavidez, I would be aiming to finish every combination I throw with a left hook to either head or body. The Philly shell in general is susceptible to a left hook, in particular a left hook at the end of a combination. So if I'm Benavidez, I throw combinations. I try to engage Plant in a real high octane fight, but he has to make sure that he finishes most of his combinations with a left hook. I think that shot is money for David Benavidez. Again, Plant's been hit by that shot throughout his career. Canelo, Truax, Uskatigi, etc. Another thing I would like to see from David Benavidez in this fight, once again assuming that Plant's going to use that Philly shell style, I want to see Benavidez be a bit more subtle with his approach in regards to his offense. One thing about Benavidez I need to see improvements on is his entries to make attacks. How he opens the door. Usually Benavidez just relies on size and punch combinations. He'll try and wear you down, run you over. I want to see a bit more subtlety from Benavidez in this fight. And what I mean is, throw a couple of feints on the front foot. Try to make Caleb Plant reactive, and if you manage to do that, then capitalise. Again, maybe feint the jab, Plant then turns into the Philly shell, come back over the top with an overhand right. That's another good shot when it comes to the Philly shell, is to loop your overhand right, up and over kind of thing. I think that shot as well could have success for Benavidez. Canelo Alvarez was able to land the up and over right hand on Caleb Plant's Philly shell defense. So yeah, I want to see more creativity in regards to Benavidez in how he initiates his attacks. Try to draw a reaction from Caleb Plant by feinting. Maybe even try to draw the lead of Caleb Plant. Benavidez isn't known as a counterpuncher, but he certainly got the speed to maybe do it. Again, that's not one of his strong suits, so I wouldn't say make that a big part of your game plan, but have it in your arsenal to change things up on Caleb Plant. I don't think Caleb would be expecting to get countered like that, or for Benavidez to set traps. So I think Benavidez would be smart to try to incorporate some of that in his game, in his offensive game. And not only that, it's good going forwards, because eventually Benavidez can't rely on size forever. Yeah, that's going to work at 168, but he needs to start adding these sort of subtle skills to his arsenal. So I want to see Benavidez's feint game in this fight. I've seen him do it now and again. He doesn't do it anywhere near enough, in my opinion. And against a coy, sometimes defensive fighter like Plant, those feints can be key to opening him up to land power shots. Naturally as well, again, I mentioned Caleb Plant's gas tank. Obviously, Benavidez, he does this quite well. He needs to work the body of Caleb Plant. Needs to try and get on top of Caleb Plant, collapse that pocket, and really work up close. Uppercuts to the body, hooks to the body, maybe come upstairs to the head. He needs to draw Plant into that inside battle. Plant can pick some good punches on the inside, but defensively on the inside he's not great, in my opinion. Primarily, Caleb Plant's defense is best when he's on the outside, when he's moving away from punches, when he can see what's coming at him. On the inside, Plant will try and roll and slip, but again, when it's multiple punch combinations, that's when Plant starts to get tagged on the inside. So yeah, Benavidez needs to make the most of those opportunities on the inside, let go of his shots, and again, in particular, work that body. And another thing for Benavidez in this fight comes down to the mental side of things, which would be composure. When you look at the build-up to this fight, both guys don't like each other, it appears genuine. However, Benavidez, for my estimation, appears to be much more in his feelings than Caleb Plant's. He can't let those emotions surface in the ring, particularly as, you know, Plant might start this fight well, when he's fresh, when he's quick, when he's agile. I mean, Benavidez could get outboxed in the first few rounds, and if he's harbouring those sort of emotions, that anger, that could result in Benavidez getting even more frustrated if he starts this fight badly. If Plant starts well and wins the early rounds, Benavidez might get even more desperate than he usually would due to the personal animosity. I know people don't like talking about mind games when it comes to breaking down fights, and usually I don't, but, you know, sometimes the emotional state of a fighter does sometimes surface on fight night, right? And sometimes it can make or break a fighter's game plan. So, yeah, Benavidez on fight night needs to get out of his feelings and approach this for what it is, a fight, a boxing match, you know? And yeah, Benavidez ultimately needs to be Benavidez. There's no good trying to reinvent the wheel. Ultimately, he needs to be the pressure guy in this fight. I just want to see him, you know, box behind that high guard, keep nice and tight, don't give away silly punches, and try to be a bit more subtle in regards to setting up attacks, you know, by feinting and things of that nature. But yeah, again, for Benavidez, for me this fight is quite simple. Well, his approach is pretty straightforward, considering what he does. As for Caleb Plant, however, as we know, Caleb Plant is known as a slick boxer, dare I say, a bit of a mover. You know, he likes to be mobile, he likes to get behind that jab, maintain distance, that sort of thing. He likes to move around the ring. I think Caleb Plant in this fight being too passive and excessively moving only leads to one thing, and that is him getting stopped and losing the fight. For me, I can't see Caleb Plant going in there, dancing around for 12 rounds and outboxing Benavidez. I know he's the better boxer, I know he's got better legs, but I just can't see him doing that for 12 rounds. I really can't. Given the size of Benavidez, the punch output, the strength, he'll just keep following Plant around. And can Plant do that for 12 rounds? I'm not convinced. I'm really not. So for me, I would say early on in this fight, Caleb Plant needs to shock people. He needs to shock people. We know what Benavidez thinks of Caleb Plant. He said it on numerous occasions. Caleb hits like a bitch. He can't punch. Now, where did we hear that before? So Benavidez more than likely is going to go in this fight with the mindset that Plant can't hurt him. I believe that Benavidez believes that. So if I'm Caleb Plant, I try to use that against Benavidez. I don't think Caleb Plant is a massive puncher, but when he sets his feet and throws with intent, when he turns his knuckles over on his shots, when he gets a bit of torque into his shots, he can hurt people. Again, he's not a massive puncher, but people feel it. Just ask Anthony Durrell. So if I'm Caleb Plant, I would come out in this fight early on. You know, I'm assuming that Benavidez is going to apply pressure right from the off. I'm assuming he's going to get aggressive early on. And if I'm Caleb Plant, I would try to meet Benavidez head on. And again, what I mean by that, I'm not saying sit in the phone box and trade with Benavidez, but I would selectively hold my feet and throw combinations in a boxer puncher style. 1-2, hard 1-2, left hook. You know, Benavidez sometimes is guilty of coming in square on. In fact, he does that a lot. He follows guys around the ring a lot. He's not exactly a guy who takes his head off centre line. And the 1-2 is going to be there for Caleb Plant. Again, Benavidez's only form of defense is his high guard, and he's not always disciplined with that. So if I'm Plant, I'm looking for the 1-2 right away. I'm putting power in those shots, and I try to get the respect of Benavidez. I also finish some of those combinations for 1-2s with a left hook, trying to get around the side of David Benavidez's guard. If I'm Caleb Plant, I would also try to alternate those attacks from body to head. You know, mix all this in with feinting. I want to see Caleb Plant target the body of Benavidez, in particular with straight shots. The 1-2 to the body, just a single jab to the body, occasionally a lead right hand to the body. Try to really dig in the solar plexus of Benavidez. As we know, you know, I've been questioning Caleb Plant's stamina, but Benavidez is a really big guy, and making weight must kill him. It must take something out of him, right? So if I'm Caleb Plant, I would also try to target Benavidez's body, you know, see if there's some weakness there, you know? So I think early on in this fight, Caleb Plant at times needs to hold his feet and throw. You know, initiate. Don't react, initiate and throw combinations at David Benavidez, and make sure that there's purchase on these punches, not a rat-a-tat-tat combination, a shoeshine combination that has nothing on it. Punch with power, punch with gusto. Try to surprise David Benavidez, because who knows, maybe Plant catches Benavidez early on with some good shit, and it makes Benavidez reassess that opinion he had of Plant, a guy who couldn't punch. And if that occurs on fight night, that could really put Benavidez in a box. It could make him hesitant on being so gung-ho in his approach. It could make him hesitant in throwing his own shots. If Plant can get his respect, that could be huge for Caleb Plant. So again, Plant needs to throw with fire early. And again, I wouldn't wait to do it. I'd be looking to do it from the very first round. Seriously, I would. Naturally as well, Caleb Plant needs to make the most of his best attributes. Caleb Plant he has very good timing, underrated timing, I would say. He's a good counterpuncher with his left hook and his straight right hand as well. One mistake Benavidez makes quite a lot is his jab. Now, Benavidez will throw that jab out nice and quick with good snap. How he throws the shot isn't necessarily the problem, but it's how he brings it back. Benavidez sometimes is slow bringing that lead hand back. Sometimes he'll bring that lead hand back and it doesn't go back to his chin. So I think Caleb needs to be looking to counter the jab of Benavidez with his straight right hand. I know that might be a little hard considering Benavidez is a bit taller, so maybe Plant needs to add a bit of loop on that right hand to counter the jab. But the jab is there to be countered from David Benavidez. So yeah, Plant needs to look for the straight right hand counter or the overhand right counter over Benavidez's jab. Another thing, there's going to be moments in this fight where Benavidez does get close, where he does, you know, get to the inside. Plant is going to have to fight him off sometimes, but he can't afford to stay there too long, because Benavidez, in my opinion, throws more punches up close with better speed. He can't afford to sit in the pocket too long. So he needs to spin out, he needs to circle out, he needs to pivot out. On the pivot out, I would be suggesting that Caleb Plant throws the left hook. He throws the left hook on the pivot out to try and catch Benavidez square in between punches. Because if you pivot out, Benavidez isn't going to pivot with you necessarily. He's not reactive like that, you know. So if I'm Plant, I pivot out, left hook, and then reset. But again, when I talk about counters, do it with power. And that's really the takeaway I have when it comes to Caleb Plant. he needs to be power punching on a much more frequent basis than he usually does. What he did against Canelo is not going to work. Not going to work. He barely threw a power punch in anger against Canelo. If you look at that fight, he didn't really let go of many hard shots. If he does the same against Benavidez, he loses. He loses, in my opinion. Yes, Benavidez isn't as good technically as Canelo, but he's much bigger. He throws much more punches. I would say he's a harder puncher based on size. He brings more speed when it comes to punches in bunches. So yeah, I mean, again, Plant needs to get ballsy in this fight. He needs to let his nuts hang, in my opinion. That's how I see it, and it appears that Plant may be heading in that direction. I liked that he was throwing more power shots in the Anthony Durrell fight, and his coach, Stephen Breadman Edwards, he actually said that during that camp, they was working more on sitting down on punches. So hopefully we see more of that in this fight with Benavidez. Not only does it make it more entertaining for us fight fans, but I think that gives Caleb a better chance of winning, to be honest. But yeah, very interesting fight in my opinion. I like the build-up, I've enjoyed the build-up, I like the beef. I'm really looking forward to this fight, I have to say. I know I've been a bit negative at times in recent months when it comes to boxing, but this is one of my most anticipated fights of the year, believe it or not. Now, how do I think this fight's going to play out ultimately? I wouldn't be shocked, I've said this before, I wouldn't be shocked if we get Antonio Margarito versus Miguel Cotto 1 2.0. What I mean by that, I could easily see Caleb Plant starting this fight very quickly, looking sharp with a jab, moving well, landing the 1-2, maybe the 1-2 left hook, countering at times, you know, winning the early rounds, looking like the better boxer, looking like the more agile boxer, looking like the better athlete. I could see that scenario. And then I can see the tide turning purely down to the attrition of David Benavidez, the size of David Benavidez, the strength of David Benavidez, as well as the punch power and output of David Benavidez. And I can see Caleb Plant starting this fight well and flagging when it comes to the mid-rounds. I can see him flagging due to the type of fighter that Benavidez is and the physical attributes in which he brings to the table, similar to Cotto Margarito 1. I have David Benavidez winning this fight. I believe he beats Caleb Plant, not because technically he's better than Caleb Plant, but ultimately because he's bigger, he's stronger, he throws more punches, I think he's got better stamina, I'm pretty convinced he's got a better chin. I think he grinds down Caleb Plant and stops him late. I really do. I think Caleb Plant gets stopped in between rounds. The last 4 rounds he'll get stopped, in my opinion. I believe Plant gets stopped in the last 4 rounds. Not only that as well, I know I said Caleb is better technically than Benavidez, and in most instances I think he is, but I do think Benavidez is a better inside fighter than Caleb Plant, and I think you'll see that in the second half of this fight, combined with the strength and size. So, I've got David Benavidez winning this fight, and I've got him winning it by a late stoppage in the last sort of 3 to 4 rounds of this fight. But anyway, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts. How do you see this fight going? Do you believe, like me, that Benavidez will be too big, too strong on the night and will stop Caleb Plant? Or do you see this fight going differently? Share your thoughts below. It's been your guy Delboy. Peace.